Hello, I'm Rich Pesson for Critical Point, and this is part three of a series on the civilization cycles. And today, though, we're going to switch over to how do those cyclical patterns for the history of this nation, the U.S. that is, how does that relate to the stock market? First, I will do a recap also from part one and two, but do the stock market ahead of that. But ahead of that, I want to touch base on something I don't believe I showed in part two, because I think the data came in a little later. This is a chart of the gross domestic income, something to compare to gross domestic product, GDP. It's showing what we've been talking about, that from the 1950s, 1980s, GDP improved. It was like 4.1% according to some people. Then from 1980s today, GDP declined to 2.8%. That's like driving in a car at 60 miles an hour on cruise control and then you cut it to 40 miles an hour. That doesn't work for the American people, okay? So this is a different way of looking at what I explained in the prior two videos or podcasts. And this does break down to the generational one and two, okay? And then generation three and four. And generation four is always bad, a crisis. We think poorly, we're bad people, okay? Things break, okay? So what it does show us backup information on how the economy in U.S. for the middle class, for most of the nation as a nation, actually topped in 1980 with the symbolic election of President Reagan, or you can make an argument it was right about 1999, 2000. We'll discuss that more. All right, now let's go on to discussing the stock market using these cyclical patterns. So this is a cyclical pattern. Oh, I have to adjust this chart. Here we go. So what we've done is the SC1 is something that lasts like a couple hundred years. Well, that actually crashed and burned in the 1930s for the Great Depression, and that's really more of a global market modeling or European model in that the U.S. is born from Europe. And we'll discuss that at another future date and updates on this concept of where are we going as a nation or even as a world. Now, as for the civilization part, society, culture, the people as Americans, it's a bit different timing. Instead of the SC1 in the 1930s, the SC1 downside crash and burn is occurring now, 2000 to now. It's in its crisis, death, winter phase. And it's going to be reborn. Hopefully, happy days coming. Now, we break the SC1 into SC2s, and that gets into that four generations that people keep talking about, writing books about. And it's about a 70 or 90 year pattern versus a pattern of 200 years more or less. And by the way, that 200-year pattern, the SC1, I discovered it many years after discovering SC1, discovered it in earnings for British citizens in England going back to the years 1200. So that 200-year pattern, in my opinion, is there. Anyway, to go with the SC2, what was going on is we had an SC2 crash and burn in the 2008-2009 frame, the great financial crisis. This is an SC2 just ahead of the Civil War, a crisis, okay? Then we can break that into components of the SC2 called SC3s, which relates to what I was just showing in that gross domestic income along with the SC2. So there's an SC3 in the early 1800s, and then it comes out and down again just ahead of the Civil War to coincide with an SC2. Then we see an SC3 and an SC3, and we get another SC2, but we also got the SC1. And again, the SC1 for the nation as a people did not occur in 1930s, 40s. That was a world global thing. Under our own history, our own progress, activity, it's occurring now for the crisis. So here's another SC3 causing a problem in the early 1970s with super high inflation, crashing stock market. Then we get another SC3 along with the SC2 for the great financial crisis. Then we get another run-up. We're going to see an SC3 around the year 2047, 2052 with the stock market down 40 to 60%. Financial crisis, recession, bad times, maybe even a depression. It shouldn't be. We shouldn't allow it. We don't have to. We have a beautiful machine that I'll talk about later. And by the way, part 4 of this series, and will be the final part, is about MMT, the money printing machine, how we need to better understand it, acknowledge it, appreciate it, and put it to good use. It's being abused and misused right now, and A lot of people don't even are aware of it. Others, they're aware of it, but want to shove it under the rug. They want the economics to go their way, okay? Anyway, to get back to this, probably around the 2080s, 2090s, we'll see an SC2 with the stock market down 57 to 90%. I don't think there's any reason to see it down more than 60%, but I realize forever is a long time, and these patterns have overlapping performances where they can kind of behave like one another at times. If you're looking for another SC1 in the stock market, 1929, 1930s crash, you're probably going to wait till late next decade or next century. But again, the SC2 by the end of this decade or century may actually cause that kind of problem or relate to that kind of problem, okay? Now, inside of this SC3, we can break this into SC4s as we did for the generational discussion, where each generation is about 17 to 27 years. Okay, that's the period of time that you're born into a generation. And by the way, the SC2 generation-wise, really your generation right today for you have more similarities than dissimilarities to a generation 4 generations in the past. Okay, so you are like someone that does repeat on that 4 generations. At any rate, that's my forecast. There's a chance the stock market is going to be seeing a 20 to 60% drop in the next few years for SC4. And then we have a long-term, once a decade sell signal when the stock market is down like 20 or 50%. That's all going to occur in the next few years. We have a decade buy signal when the stock market goes up 100 to 400% per decade. And then we break it down to smaller and smaller fluctuations where the modeling is even looking at patterns every 30 minutes or something like that. Okay. So we can help very short term to very long term people, businesses, business planning, help you with your career. Where are we going with history? And this will entangle, apparently, and dovetail to what we're talking about for civilizations, okay? So at any rate, we might be in a bull market to about 2047, 2052. If you want to say a 60% down move is not a sign of end to something, we may yet learn we're in a bull market all the way to the end of this century and then have something more serious, okay? And I'm finding these patterns will work 70 or 80% accuracy from minutes to hundreds of years, okay? And I can even prove some, or it's more like 90-some% accurate. All right, let's switch over for a recap now. So this table suggests this is the SC1, the 200-year cycle, the history of our country. It breaks into 3 components called SC2s, and we had a Revolutionary War there, we had a Civil War there, we had a World War II there, and today we're in a soft Civil War or revolution. I can't quite figure it out myself, but it's bad. We're in a crisis, okay? Now, each one of these breaks into generations 1 and 2 and generations 3 and 4. Okay, it's kind of like a yin-yang thing going on, all right? And we call those SC3s. Then we can break each one of those into generation 3 and 4, okay, for this last one. And then this would be generation 1 and 2. And generation 4 is always bad, and it's been running from 2000s to 2020s right this time, okay? So what I want you to think about is the middle class grew from about 1780s, 90s up to the 1970s, and some of the best growth was 1940s, 50s to 1970s, I believe. Now that's the percent of the middle class. We also tested this with the idea of what portion of the economy did the middle class receive or earn or capture? And it proved from like 6% of the economy all the way up to about 60%. The population grew from 6%, meaning we were a rich man, poor man country back then, grew all the way to 70% as middle class, okay? Now, from the 1970s to now, the percent of the economy for the middle class has declined faster than the population of the middle class, but both are down. And that's why I say, gee, it looks like to me starting this whole Republican pro-economy, trickle-down, big business kind of stuff, the financialization, the rentierism, which is where we rent and lease everything. We don't own anything. The obsolescence built into that, meaning we can't buy a computer program anymore and use it forever. We have to keep paying something every year. Our dishwashers and clothes dryers, they break down within 5 years when they used to last 20 years. That's the economy we're in. Business wants you to come to their store every day, week, month, year for the rest of your life. Keep spending, spending, spending. That would be okay if they paid everybody a lot, but they don't. They wind up making more and more profits that just goes in the stock market, banker street, goes into the rich man's hands and just stays, and it doesn't come out. It doesn't really help the middle class and poor. We started a repression period for the middle class in 1980s, maybe as late as 2000, I'll talk about next. We just started that. And it's also a depression in the sense of financial side, economy side, mental, physical side. Okay, we're really a messed up people with a messed up system right now. And so if we look at what's going on, another state, I'll show you here with the consumer sentiment happiness indicators, it does show in the 80s, 90s, we decided to give Reaganomics a chance, give the rich a chance, give capitalism a chance, and we went gung-ho for it. President Clinton wasn't just another Republican. He was all for it. Give a global trade, give away our jobs, fight welfare, and he had one of the best stock markets ever. Okay, it was great and wonderful. But from 2000, it all fell apart. And from 2000 on, Democrats just became another Republican. They love the stock market, Banker Street, Wall Street, big business. They don't help the middle class and poor like they used to. Not back like in the 1950s, 70s when labor unions helped out, the government helped out, welfare helped out. We allowed people to get rich. They still got rich, believe it or not. All right, Republicans trying to teach you, no, they never got rich. They got rich. Okay, they just didn't get as rich as today, and not as many of them. But the middle class was actually better off. Well, this chart just shows you the U.S. was born there, died there, or back in the 1970s, whichever way you want to, and it's falling now into this crisis period. But this also shows you Generation 1 going to step up to the plate, rebuild the government, but different, better. At least Trump is tearing things down, forcing us to try something new and different. That's probably about the only positive thing he's doing. Now, I asked AI to try to come up with ideas to see if I was on the right track, and this is some of the printout it gave. All right, so keep that in mind as well. You might want to take a snapshot of it. Think about that a moment. Now, this is the consumer sentiment. There's some happy indicators, if you will, out there. Gallup poll may have some of those still. All right, but what we're showing is consumer sentiment. We got happier from 1980s through the 90s, okay, with Democrats and Republicans, Clinton and George Bush and President Reagan, okay? But from 2000 on, we woke up saying, this really isn't working for us, is it? But right around Obama, second term, they said, you know what? There's a chance. Things are going to get good. Then Trump come in and killed it right there. Instead of getting happier, more optimistic, they became pessimistic, sour mood. Then under Biden, it blipped back up. Not as good as Obama, but blipped up, far better than Trump and other periods of past history. Right back down under Trump, right back down into the gutter. We are in generational 4 from 2009 for crisis. I think it ends sometime 2026 to 2034. Let's put an end to it. Let's get going. So what are some of the things we need to work on? Okay, Medicare for all. Even billionaire think tanks and universities say it would be a good thing for businesses and people. Universities are saying the same thing, but they've taken another step. They're saying it also save lives. Don't you want to save lives? That's how you build a better economy. You want to print more and more money? Yes, you want the population growing, but you know what's far more important than population growing? Okay, which is why we probably should keep some of those immigrants here to grow the population so we can print more money and grow the economy. But really, you want your people learning more, have better education, and you want them to be more creative and productive. And if you can keep those going and tame inflation, you can print more and more money forever. And I'm going to explain that in part 4 coming up soon. Okay, hopefully tomorrow. All right, at any rate, then we have minimum wage or basic income. We've got to get it up there, $17, $23, $25 an hour. We ought to have goals of $50,000 to $70,000 a year per person minimum, okay? We can print money and pump it right into retirement accounts and get them caught up because they're not earning enough money. They can't buy enough stocks. You Republicans, you blew it. You had this system where even if people were not earning enough money, if they could get into the stock market, that would make up the difference. And then we allow the rich to get richer because, you know, the rich, they could never have enough, right? But you blew it because you allowed the people run too far behind on money they can't really afford to get in the stock market. And the stock market goes up and up and up year after year after year. And I'm going to show that in a moment again. So at any rate, put some money in their accounts, help them out, retirement accounts. Trump is trying to do that. He is doing some of these things. But the problem is they're not broad enough, deep enough, robust enough. They're trying to still use the government as little as possible, and they're trying to use philanthropy. They want the rich donating money into those retirement accounts. These are nothing but Band-Aids, folks, and distractors. We got to get some real people in there, real powerhouse people are going to say, yeah, if the government needs to do it, damn it, and print the money. You can print all the money you want in the government. I'm going to explain that in that MMT. Don't miss that next one, okay? All right, save Social Security. That's giving them a new educational program. Copy another countries doing better than us since we're such a messed up people right now. Why do we have to try to figure everything out on our own? Screw that. Find somebody who's already done a good job with it. Copy them. Millennials and Gen Zers are 6% of Congress, but they're 60% of the population. You folks got to get going. Some of you need to sacrifice a little and say, instead of building a career in business, go to work for the government, become a politician, better still, get into Congress, change things, make that your career, get others to back you. Baby boomers and Gen Xers cause crisis generation 2000 to 2020s. We're going to have a rebirth moment, 2030s, 2040s. It's up to you millennials and Gen Zers more so, but Gen Xers and some of us baby boomers, and I'm on the tail end of the baby boomers, almost a Gen Xer, okay? I could see we're starting to turn the corner and get a little better on that, but we really need the millennials and Gen Xers to step up. You're going to create the big boom, and here's another stock forecast for you. I think the stock market currently under 7,000 for the S&P 500. I think it goes to 29,000 to 47,000 in the next 2 decades if you fix these things. Now, let me get over to the stock chart and explain that a little bit. Okay, we're going back into the 1940s, 50s, according to some people, even Republicans, non-Republicans. Steve Bannon apparently likes that idea, okay? I don't think they understand that during the 50s, President Eisenhower had 70 to 90% taxes. And he said he loved high taxes. He said it gets people up, motivates them, gets them going. They do business, they create jobs. Why? Because they were getting tax deductions so they don't have to pay the taxes. So it was working. It was a glorious system. We had welfare. We had unions. Middle class were getting their fair share. The Republicans were not taking everything. Now, you might say, oh, then that means the stock market didn't do so good. You know what? The stock market went up. It didn't make the glorious returns of like 20, 40% today or 10 or 15. I think, but they around 4 to 8, and they had their years of 20 or 30. Okay, and look at the stock market right in here. This is the stock market. It's just marching higher and higher and higher and higher. Okay, steady, steady. Go get them. It was making money because it knew that the companies were also making money, but they knew those companies were taking care of their employees and the country, and it was working together. The government and business and American people all working to create that holy triangle, okay, the Trinity, okay, and they had a good balance. Come 1980, we decided to be far more selfish, okay, and make it more about bankers and Wall Streeters and the money people and the money temple, and not the computers, not the cars, not the cheese, not the corn and soybeans and your bread, okay? Those people don't matter. That's what they're saying. That's what they're telling us. And yes, it went to high tech, but you can make an argument that people in high tech, a lot of them don't really make the big bucks like people think. This is a real one-sided system. We got to put an end to it. We've got to get going, okay? All right. Okay, go to criticalpointpod.com, check out what I have. Some stuff's unlocked and free, some is locked up. There's a blog section with a free newsletter. I have a newsletter called Notes from a Napkin. I've had it for 30 years here. And then I have these series that I'm putting on now. I call them The Affairs of Man. Has something to do with Raymond Wheeler, who discovered that climate actually impacts us how we think and behave. We're good people, bad people. And he wrote it as The Affairs of Man. Well, I've kind of borrowed that to use in anything and everything, and it ties in with the Notes from a Napkin. I also offer Stock Index Magi service, $18 a month currently, free 60-day free trial, cancel anytime. It's on the stock market, gold, Bitcoin, oil, economy, interest rates. It's more about the interest rates, economy, and stock market. Then we have Commodities by Rich Posset, corn, soybeans, wheat, $12.75 a month. You add the two together, you can get a combined package, no deal on it. It's just those prices added. You can email me here with comments, ideas, 2 different emails, my notes from a napkin on the website under the blog section, and then all these videos, Affairs of Man. And then you can find me as Rich Posson or Richard Posson on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Threads, X, and others. Thank you for thank you for your time and consideration on this matter with civilization, where we're going with the country. Please, I want to go to work for money or non-money, for think tanks, political groups, organizations. Get involved, and I want to see the young people really get in here, take over this country, and let's make a big, big difference here. Now, keep an eye out for part 4. Will be the final of this series. It's going to be on MMT, the money printing machine, how it really works and how we can benefit and do much better. I mean, China's just stomping us right in the ground. All the great and wonderful things they're doing. They're actually running an MMT money system that's opposite of our money system, and we've been preaching to them they had to use our textbook in order to build a good economy. They decided to do the opposite, and they're beating us. They're beating us severely. And there's a lot of propaganda in this country. It's almost like the new communists are really the people who should be sticking up for our freedoms and making a better economy. Thank you so much, and watch out for that part 4. I'll probably in the future also put that MMT one out as something separate. Thank you so much.